Well, there it is, guys. Got a little ad on here to the back of the, well, to the side of the shop there. Got a little lean-to we put across there. It's about 25 foot out from that right there total. Kind of set it out here. Kind of made it a little bit flatter than I would have liked to, just so that we can, so that I can make sure I can get any of my tractors in, or anything I've got. I can get in from any side. But there you can see I got my welding trailer sitting in there now. I got both my tractors sitting in there. They're tucked away nice. Turned out real nice. Kind of pleased with it. But one of the biggest reasons I did this, a couple people asked me, well, isn't your shop big enough? And I'm like, well, my shop's big enough, but don't really have a barn. So I end up with a shop and a barn all at the same time. So you can kind of classify this lean-to as an equipment shed, barn, whatever you want to classify it as. How can I justify the costs of it? Well, for me, it only cost me $1,000 extra to do all of it. Now, for a lot of people, it may have cost a lot more than that, but for me, that's all it cost me. For one, I can do all the labor myself. Number two, most of the material I either traded to other people, or I was able to buy for cheap. All the tin that is on it is, it's starting to rain, so I had to climb underneath here, but all the tin that's on it is chicken house. It came off an old chicken house someone tore down. So I was able to get a really, really good price on everything that's here. And if you look up right there, you can tell that obviously we've got, I don't know if it's not going to focus real well, but I've got holes that are in it. You know, so it's not 100% leak proof. Now, however, most of the holes are actually in the high rib. So the high rib, the holes being in the high rib makes it to where as long as you've got some downhill slant, you're less likely to have leaks. Now, this will be the first rain that we're listening to right now. It's supposed to rain all day tomorrow. So we'll see. All the water that you're actually seeing in here right now, like that standing water, that's because it just rained before we got the tin on. And then we came in here and popped all the tin on quick. So the ground's actually still a little wet. You can actually see, where the ground's got the little indentations where the rain came in here and was hitting all over it. But anyway, so I'm excited to see what we've got. I'm sure there will be one or two places that's kind of unacceptable leaks. But for the most part, I think we're going to be okay. So anything that's unacceptable, I can always put a lap screw inside of there. And it's a little bit of a fatter screw. And it's usually that'll stop it. The main thing is I want to get these things out of the sun. And then I don't want them to be soaking wet. A little drip or two. I mean, that machine was made to be out in the weather. These tractors were made to be out in the weather. But they're just better undercover. So why spend the money on a lean-to? Like let's say it didn't cost me $1,000, which I mean we know that it did, so that's great. And I still need to justify that cost. But let's say for someone else, how could you justify that? What's the purpose in having a place to park all of this stuff undercover? I mean, obviously I can park it in my shop during the rain and then pull it out. And that's actually what I've been doing ever since. I've been parking it in there as soon as it started raining. And I could have just left it out. That's another story entirely. But I just been parking it in my shop, and the problem is it was taking up so much space. The shop, for me, is mostly here so that I can work out of the rain and out of the heat. Okay? Out of the sun, out of the rain, and out of the cold. A lot of it is out of the rain. You know, if it starts to rain on me, I want to be able to get out of that rain and start working. Well, if every time it starts to rain, I go pulling in all this stuff in my shop, I'm taking up all that space that, you know, and it's not just the space that itself is taken up, but it's the fact that now I've got to route cords around there and leads around there and just stuff like that, you know. I got my little crane in there. I can't maneuver around real well in there with that. But then there's another aspect as well is the tires. Even though I've got gravel here, this will be on an upcoming video. I don't think that it will be posted at this point, But I've done some improvements on the driveway and all like that. And this is one of the things we did. We got some more gravel in here, and that is really nice. I'm loving it. But even with that, that definitely saves some of the traction. The dirt that comes in here, I don't have red clay coming in here anymore, as much anyway. But there's still dirt. There's still stuff that comes in from them tires that comes into the shop, and I'd like to minimize that. I'm gonna have it when I bring my tractor in to lift stuff and move it into there and things like that. But I'm not. I want to minimize it. I want to keep it as. I want to have as little of that as possible, because it's just less cleanup and less hassle, and frankly, it just looks a little better to me. So that's part of it. But then why do they need to be undercover? Well, like I said before, technically they don't. They are built to be able to be in the weather, and they are fine. But since I use older equipment, and really, even buying newer equipment, it's nice to just be able to protect it from day one. But really, even with older equipment, maybe especially with older equipment, as it gets older, the wiring gets a little bit looser. There's just different things on it that just aren't quite as protective of those elements as they used to be. So we'll take this tractor, for instance, right here. I've had an issue in the past where if it rains on it, and it's heavy rain, it has to be heavy rain. If there's a lot of heavy rain, then when I turn this key on, I don't know if you can, I can see the light. I don't know if you can see it or not in the camera. Let me turn it off. Okay, yeah. So you can see when I turn the key on, that light comes on. Well, that's because when I turn the key on, everything powers up here on the dash. Well, so I've had a couple times where if it was out in the rain, there'd be a lot of, I guess it had to be some really heavy rain, but whatever the case may be, it stopped working. Now, it was just temporary. I got in there and dried the wires out, but the point is that they're not as protective as they used to be. It's just not good to have it out in the rain. So you're just a lot better off for that. But then the second thing is tractor tires and tires period, they get beat up in the sun. So the sun damage. These tires are not cheap. Now, they last a long time, okay? But when they do go out, they're not cheap. And something that really saves your tires is to get them out of the sun. So all the time that a tire can last, they can last so much longer when you get them out of the sun. Okay, so that's part of it. And then the tires that I keep on my Weldon trailer. When I go pulling this down the road, I don't pull it a lot anymore. So my tires don't really, the tread never really gets worn down. More than anything, it's the sun damage that gets to it, because they end up being on there for a long time, you know, because the tread never gets worn down. So, and I think I will upgrade to 10-ply tires or 14-ply tires eventually, but I haven't done that yet. But whatever the case may be, taking that sun damage off is huge. But it's also your leads, your cords. You see I got these cords right here and these leads, and then I've got this hose over here. This really gets beat up by the sun. I just cut 10 foot off of this thing because it was so beat up, and you can tell there's still cracks. Get close, yeah, you can see that. There's cracks all in there. And these hoses aren't cheap. They're not cheap at all, okay? So for me to be able to get a cover on there, that's probably, I think, I don't know, it's hard to say, but I bet you it's $100 every 5 years or so. And that's if I keep the hose and keep on cutting it down and letting it get shorter and shorter and shorter. I don't really want to do that. I really like to have 100 foot, you know, especially if you're working on a lot of professional jobs. You need that 100 foot, you know. So it's not something that you're going to want to get messed up. So that's a big part of it for me, is being able to keep that kind of stuff. It's sun damage more than more than the rain. The rain is huge, and especially for these old machines right here, okay? These machines are one of the best outdoor pieces of equipment that I've ever seen. These things you literally can leave just out in the elements, and they just, I mean, as long as you put antifreeze in there, you just don't have any issues as far as weather goes. That thing is a 69 Weldon machine. everybody keeps them out on their trucks. They keep them on trailers and everything, you know. So I'm not as concerned about the machine, but with that being said, I still like to have it undercover. But it's mostly everything else on the trailer. So you can kind of justify it with that. But then this right here, it's other pieces of equipment. This kind of stuff right here, okay? This is our trailer right here. We take this trailer to markets. We got, we'll pit beef in our freezers and things like that, and we'll take that and go to different markets in different towns and sell stuff out of it and stuff. So we like to be able to keep that undercover, keep the tires safe, keep them out of the sun. But also, since we have freezers inside of there, if we can keep that out of the sun and in the shade, the cooler that stays, the less those freezers have to work. You know, because we try to check that as often as we can, but the fact is we don't check it often enough that if those freezers ever go bad, that's a lot of money you lost, you know. So anyway, that's a big thing, being able to keep that undercover. That's something I'll end up moving over there, and I won't have to have taken up my pad space anymore. And then this is another thing, I briefly touched on it, but this right here is made of poly, okay? These things being poly are actually much better for these because they don't get rusted out. If you put anything you put in there, you don't have to worry about them getting rusted out. Keeping them undercover when they're metal is good too. But then if you do poly, they're much likely to last a lot longer if you keep them out of the sun. So that's another thing we're going to be throwing in there to keep that out of the sun, okay? And then I've got right here, I've got my pig feed. Right now everybody knows I'm still using some deer corn, but I'm actually doing the deer corn as my whole corn. And then I've got found some ground corn and ground corn meal, and then I've got soybean. So I'm able to keep that. I'm going to move that out to the lean-to because there's just no point in having it in here. And then I've got some concrete. Sometimes you buy a pallet of concrete and, you know, you keep that stuff in there. So really, how to justify buying it, having the lean-to, it's just a whole bunch of stuff that you can, A, keep out of your shop and off your pad, makes your pad more useful to you, but B, it just gives you a lot more places to be able to store stuff, get stuff in there, get it in out of the way, and then when I come in to pick it up with my tractor, like if I've got a pallet of something, pick it up with my tractor, if that was in my shop, once again, I'm getting mud and dirt and everything else all into my shop. So, and I guess the snow is another big reason, because we actually had a substantial amount of snow for the south last year, and that was a big thing because then I had my tractor, had to have it completely covered up and just babied and everything because it was all covered in snow, and that definitely made a big difference because the snow started to leak down in there around the electronics. And anyway, just a big thing. It's always good to have your equipment covered. It makes it all last a lot longer. Plus, if I ever had to work on it, I could work on it in here and I wouldn't have to work on it in my shop. Whatever the case may be, it's more room, it's nice, it's handy. I can do all kinds of stuff with it, and it was great to do. Anyway, guys, I'll quit rambling on about that. Just kind of wanted to show you all that. Real quick, I'm going to come back over here, back up, maybe give you all a little another view of it. Coming back, the rain is kind of, it hadn't made up its mind yet. It thinks it wants to rain, but it just doesn't know. But anyway, I'm going to back up there. You can kind of get a good look at it. We still got to get it trimmed out and everything. We got that to do. Turned out really nice. Very happy with it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.